Hello, my friends. We are going to discuss a new series, Tremembé. And this is Brazilian TV show, which is just, 5 episodes, kind of mini series, but let's talk about what it started with. And basically, Tremembé is a prison for famous people in Brazil, in São Paulo, Brazil. Uh, Correct me if I got it wrong, but it's Sao Paulo, Brazil. And the main character, Suzanne, who was basically sentenced to 39 years. So she was basically transferred to another prison, and her sentence, 39 years, is gonna be served in that prison for high profile criminals. And basically the reason why she was transferred, because her initial prison was kind of hell. She literally just barely survived in that place, and she barely basically escaped death multiple times. And she was even locked in that locker, because other basically inmates was trying to kill her, and she was targeted personally by that criminal, by that inmate. And basically she really put everything on that transfer to another prison called Tremembe. And Tremembe in the same state of Sao Paulo. And basically Tremembe is a real place, and the Tremembe series takes place in the real life Tremembé Penitentiary Complex in the state of São Paulo, Brazil. So basically, the complex of Tremembé Penitentiary is a large prison facility that houses both male and female inmates, but they are held in separate, distinct units within the complex. And we are going to focus on female complex in Tremembé. And after Suzanne was able to convince a prosecutor to help her with that transfer to Tremembé, he was basically, given the green light to the transferring. And basically, she's really lucky because she escaped the most dangerous people, and she believed that everything is just behind. And basically, when she arrived to Tremembé, first woman she was introduced to was Big Sandra, and Big Sandra is the main boss, and she is in charge of this prison, Tremembé, of the female complex. And basically she is sentenced to 27 years, and her character is kind of, she's of course into females, and she's seeing basically Suzanne as potential love interest. But Big Sandra basically helping everybody within Tremembé, if you ask her. And Suzanne basically faced first, let's say, attack on her privacy, because somebody just, ripped her mattresses, and basically she was forced to go to ask for help. And of course, the only person who can potentially solve this type of problem and find you another bed or another mattresses basically is big Sandra, the one who is in charge of everything within this prison. And basically, after Suzanne was told to go to ask help from Sandra, she also found out that Sandra married to Elise, and Elise is this woman who is sentenced to 16 years. And basically, she is a good hunter, and her basically crime was kind of related to her, hunting skills, because she killed her husband for, something like cheating. And basically, this is why, she is not trusting even her girlfriend Sandra, because after that basically incident, and she is of course jealous. Now she is seeing this new inmate Suzanne arrived, and she's immediately getting all the spotlight because Suzanne is kind of getting on TV and everybody's excited over that news. But basically she sees this as a potential threat to her and Sandra's relationship, and she is immediately getting jealous by that. But the fact that basically Sandra and her girlfriend Elise, they have some plans for the future, and Elise basically she possesses a wine cellar, and basically that wine cellar costs like 3 million of Brazilian currency, and she can basically use that money or sell all that wine cellar for their future with Sandro after they get out of this prison, basically. So this is their plan basically for the future. And now basically Suzanne is kind of spoiling the plan of Elise and Sandra, because she arrived and the focus immediately just shifted towards Suzanne. And even though Suzanne is intentionally trying to make this shift, make this, focus, drag all the attention from Elise to herself, it's not working, because basically Sandra rejected Suzanne's, asking for help with mattresses and to find another bed, another place to sleep. He wasn't really ready to help her. But that was only at first, because after that, basically, she started noticing Suzanne, and they were basically kind of split into different groups, because Suzanne found herself another friend group, and Sandra basically, she already has her group, and Sandra basically, she is kind of giving the shots at this place. She is basically in charge of everything. And basically, Suzanne's new friend came up with an idea that they need basically protection because this is how it works at this place. And after Suzanne transferred to this place, she thought that basically there would be no danger. But her friend basically making good point because she is getting targeted by some of the inmates, and she is particularly getting targeted because her sentence is something like triggering a lot of inmates, and basically she's getting targeted because of what she did. And she is asking for help as well from Big Sandra, but the reason why Sandra is not really she's not really going to help neither of them immediately, because she is basically going to leave this place pretty soon because she's gonna get out of this prison because her sentence is about to end, and she is kind of chill at this point. She's not going to jump into another trouble with anybody, and she's kind of just trying to find out who this Suzanne redhead is. She kind of asked about Suzanne, but she didn't explicitly tell that she has something, or she is interested in relationship with Suzanne, because she is currently with Elise, and basically for her just to get into another relationship before getting out of this place kind of premature, and so unnecessary. But Suzanne basically is trying to put Sandra on basically she's trying to make Sandra notice her, and for her personal goals, because she sees this Sandra as potentially a person who can basically make Suzanne in charge of the whole place. So this is her plan, and she's trying everything possible to make Sandra notice her, but basically she is basically putting Sandra in a trouble because she snitched on Sandra and told the guards that basically Sandra and her girlfriend Elise just hooking up in a cafeteria, which is not allowed in this prison. And after she basically snitched on Sandra and Elise, they were interrupted by this guard, and that led to a fight between Sandra and that guard basically, after which Sandra was put she was punished and isolated. So, and she basically realized immediately that was Suzanne who was involved, who snitched on her basically. And Suzanne basically has her ex, who basically sentenced to 39 years as well for the same crime. They committed that crime together, and they were put in Tremembe, but Tremembe has two different facilities. It's a huge complex, and her ex was basically put into a male complex, and she's serving her time in a female complex. And he's sending her kind of threats. He's sending her letters that like telling Suzanne that she basically, betrayed her ex by, involving him into that crime, because all the plan basically of that crime, it was all made up by Suzanne, and she didn't basically commit that crime, but she was the, co-operator. She was basically the initiator of that plan, of that crime, but she didn't commit it. But she was basically sentenced to the same 39 years. And basically everybody is so, excited. And in this prison, like every famous criminal, every just high profile criminal, making a lot of noise, and everybody is just into all the, drama happening behind, happening around this new inmate, Suzanne. And basically they actually like following all her, all her, personal life, what happened to her boyfriend and now her ex, and what she did, why she did that. And basically this is like reality show within this prison, because even guards like following her personal life and all the news about Suzanne. And this is why this is like a prison for high profile criminals, because it's specifically for famous people, for, I don't know, who considered to be famous in Brazil, but like I didn't see like them mentioning any like actors or like musicians. It's like just people who got a news and somehow went viral for something. And this is why this prison is just called for famous people. But it's not like there are just artists or something like this. And basically after Sandra was punished and isolated from everybody, Suzanne basically managed to find she managed to come to Sandra's cell and basically to tease her. Even there she was trying to kind of tease Sandra, and using this manipulation, using these tactics to basically kind of tell Sandra that Suzanne basically is controlling Sandra, not like physically but maybe emotionally, after her arrival to this prison Tremembe. And Sandra is not really like trying to push back Suzanne, because she's not immediately jumping into this new possibility, new relationship. But the whole like situation is just for her, is that she is leaving this prison, and to make it complicated is just stupid. But Suzanne is trying to make Sandra get into a relationship and to break up with Elise, basically. So, and to make it happen, basically, she is resorting to something like to basically lure Sandra into this facility and seduce Sandra. But at this point, Sandra was already into this, relationship with Suzanne. And after she found out that Suzanne on purpose just spoiled that, perfectly working machine, she realized that they both just into the same thing. And after that, basically, Elise just came back and she realized that something happening between those two, and she realized that basically behind her back, Suzanne is trying to play everybody and to get basically Elise and Sandra break up. So this is why she's confronting Suzanne and trying to show her that she's not gonna, succeed. And she's confronting Sandra as well and trying to basically find out what happened in that room, because she's not basically trusting Sandra. And because of the same reason, because of that husband she killed for cheating. So basically Sandra is not trustworthy, and given that Elise had that experience, it's even more complicated because she sees every little, flirting like a threat to her relationship. And Sandra was trying to kind of, make it up with Elise, and she convinced her that nothing is happening between Suzanne and her, that the only person she is currently into is the blonde one, not the redhead. And basically, at the same time, she was lying because she was already hooking up with Suzanne, which is basically setting even more drama for next episodes, because she is directly confronting and making Elise basically potentially turn into that same person who killed her husband for cheating, because this situation can trigger the same emotions that she basically experienced back then when she committed that crime. And she has even a friend that has the same type of, sentence, the same type of crime. And her friend basically did the same thing. She killed her boyfriend or husband for cheating. So she has kind of, her own, ambitions. And Suzanne basically, by coming to this prison and getting involved with Sandra is just ruining all the, plans for Elise. So this is why she is like already imagining how she can potentially get rid of Suzanne, given that she is a good hunter and she had some experience using, her skills against her husband who was basically cheating on her. It's way easier for her to basically get Suzanne out of the picture. But there is another character who is also got involved with another criminals within this, within this prison, Tremembe. And basically, she is also got on newsfeed, and she basically had another type of, noise about her and her husband. And Jatoba, basically, this is her name. She was basically the most bullied person of this TV show because she was heavily targeted by every inmate in this TV show, and the only person who actually helped her was Suzanne. After Suzanne basically got into a relationship with Sandra, she has this kind of influence over Sandra. She can ask her to basically protect this inmate Jatoba. And Jatoba basically asked for that help because everybody is just trying to bully her and to basically hurt her. So this is why Suzanne and Jatoba basically became kind of friends. And after she asked Sandra to help to protect Jatoba, even that wasn't really enough because Jatoba basically was forced to offer those inmates basically who was bullying her and hurting her, basically mocking her. She offered them like 3,000 in Brazilian currency, and that was a deal to secure her safety. But 3,000 even in Brazilian currency is not something she can immediately come up with because she asked basically for that money. Her parents, she asked to give her that money to basically pay for her safety. And she was even able to get prison leave, so she was able to basically get out like temporarily, but she kind of, solved that problem with the most dangerous inmate that was basically targeting her, particularly her. And after that, basically, that inmate even helped her to get out of this place, even though on that prison leave, like temporarily, short period of time. And she was able even to go to give an interview. And why this is so important for this character and for the TV show itself, for the plot, because everybody within this prison is kind of famous and, viral, and a lot of news, a lot of like fake news about them. And they trying to basically kind of show that even criminals, even convicts, they have opportunity to basically tell the truth, tell their side of their story, and she is going to tell that side of her story because, like, this is the only way basically she can, reunite with her children, because after basically she was put in this prison, she is basically, uh, she was kind of rejected to meet her children, and her ex-husband's family made it sure that she will never see them again, because she basically killed she together with her husband, they committed some really, they committed some really brutal but not intentionally crime, and she was basically put into that prison for that crime, but she didn't she didn't basically do the most brutal part of that crime, because her husband, or I don't know who he was really at that point, but he did the worst part. But she was put basically in this prison anyway. And so this is what about the characters. And after basically I introduced all the characters, we can talk more about the events. And particularly, basically, Sandra, she was able to convince Suzanne to give an interview about Suzanne's story, to tell her side of that story, and for basically 120,000 Brazilian currency. And she basically lied to Suzanne and told her that this is only 100,000. But she basically lied because she wanted to keep those 20,000 to herself, basically. And even after they got into this relationship, this is still based on lying and basically own benefits for Sandra. So she's kind of not really changed after leaving Elise after cheating on her. And now she kind of cheating Suzanne because telling her false, story about that interview, and that she's gonna get only 100,000, but Suzanne agreed anyway, because this is the only way basically to reveal all the truth about her crime, or the crime that she planned but didn't commit really. And at this place, basically every convict going through a lot of examinations, they studying, they're doing a lot of tests, and one of those tests basically called Rorschach. I have no idea what it is. It's like a psychological test in which a person is shown spots of ink and asked what they look like as a way of learning about the person's personality or feelings. So let's say this is like examining when you see like some, pains, and you try and basically to imagine and not imagine, but you need to answer exactly what you see, because every like picture, every ink, every image represents some situation, real life situation. For example, like this image for Elise, this is a couple kissing, even though this is not really what it's showing, but she is imagining like this is basically she and her ex kissing, the ex that she killed. And this picture she sees as a fox, which is also incorrect. And this, like another image for her, this ink is like sea waves. I'm not sure why she sees that, but basically she didn't answer a single question, a single picture correctly. And when you basically fail in this test, it can basically lead to a conclusion that you're a psychopath or you're just not well mentally, So she is giving all those answers because it's just somehow, resurfacing all her memories about her relationship with the ex that she killed. And maybe unintentionally, but she did give all incorrect answers. But Suzanne basically managed to pass that test. And by passing that test, she's going to basically go to college. Maybe not like, offline, but she's going to basically study in a college. And she got some help from her lawyer to pass that test. Basically, she was giving all the answers. And she basically managed to pass the test, but she also managed to, secure this relationship and secure her position in this prison as a queen of this prison. When Sandra leaves this place, Suzanne will be the new queen of this place. So she's basically doing wherever it takes, and she's managing basically to get everything. And if she didn't basically get into this prison, she would have already graduated by now, because basically she ruined her life by planning those, crime, and not even committing that crime, but it made her realize that basically when she leaves this place, she will be like almost 40 years old, which is a lot, and she is not even a mother, yet. So she's kind of regretting the participation in that crime, and she basically showing remorse, which is really good for tests and for convicts, because when you're showing remorse, it means that basically you like consciously you can think about your crime, about what you did, and it means that you see the actual reason and your fault, So this is why she is able to basically pass that exam and to basically go to the college. And basically at the same time, Elise was just completely the opposite. She was kind of outsider and overshadowed by Suzanne, because now she is like failing everything, including the relationship with Sandra, and even her wine cellar was basically evaluated less than she expected. She basically expected get like 3 million from selling all the wine that she has after she killed her husband. And her husband was like affluent Japanese, businessman or whoever, but she got this wine cellar and maybe more. So this is all she has, and now like even that basically reduced to 9,100. And her basically Rorschach test, the one that Suzanne basically completed successfully, perfectly, shows that basically Elise is just psychopath by basically telling all those answers, like answering incorrectly. She basically made her situation even worse. And after that, basically, she found out that Sandra is cheating on her, because she basically noticed a hickey on Sandra's neck. And basically, she immediately realized that Suzanne basically trying to split them, trying to basically break up her and Sandra. And she kind of, she knew already that basically Suzanne using Sandra, that at some point she is going to throw away Sandra. But Sandra wasn't really willing to listen or something, like to see the whole picture, to basically think objectively, because she is about to leave this place. She is about to get some money from that interview that Suzanne is gonna give, and even though she is still lying and manipulating kind of Suzanne as well, she is more getting manipulated by Suzanne than she is manipulating her. And after Suzanne basically replaced Elise in this cave. It's like, a place for married women in a prison like this. And Sandra was basically living in a cave, which is a place with all the, necessities, and you have way more than any other convict can afford. All the comfortable, like, sleeping place, all the comfortable things, all the needs you have at this cave basically you can use once you marry another inmate. In this case, basically, Suzanne and Sandra, they are not even married, but she moved to that basically cave, and now she's getting prepared for the interview with the help from other inmates. She's got ready for this interview, and Sandra as well. They are going to give that interview together. And after they went on that interview, basically, she played all the cards, like victim card, and played perfectly that victim card to convince the audience that basically she didn't tell that she didn't do anything wrong, but she kind of accepted that she was involved in that crime, but she was able to kind of justify that. And she was able to convince that her ex was the one who basically, played the most in that crime, that he was the main part of that crime, and that tango takes two. This is what she said. And she basically put all the blame on her ex, who is basically serving his time in another complex of this prison, Tremembe. And he was watching all the news, and of course he's pissed off because seeing on like international news that his ex basically blaming him for everything, while she basically came up with the plan, with that crime. And after that, basically after this interview, she basically coming off as less, terrible person, but more like a regretful, remorseful person. And she basically was even able to show her and Sandra's relationship to kind of demonstrate, that she moved on from that one with her ex, who is jailed as well. And that now basically they are planning with Sandra to open a studio after they're getting out of this place. She is talking about another prison, the one that she was in at the beginning of this TV show, and the one basically that she was transferred from. And in that prison, basically, she was targeted by another woman who was trying to kill her, and even organized a riot against Suzanne. And she basically telling that all that is behind now, because she is now in this new prison, Tremembe, and she's not basically aware that that woman is currently, she's being transferred to this prison, Tremembe, because the reason behind this transfer could be something like sending this person to basically kill Suzanne. And this is why, like, the happiness of Suzanne and her, her new life and her plans with Sandra, everything is gonna be just ruined because of this new inmate or ex-inmate just coming back. And we will see in future episodes, and I will do more about this TV show, and we will see the culmination, the final episode, and what happened to Suzanne, because now she basically has two dilemmas. On one hand, she has like her new girlfriend lying to her and trying to steal from her money that basically she getting from this interview. And she found out basically that she is about to get way more than Sandra told her. And on the other hand, she has this new rivalry, and now basically another inmate, Elise, she is seeking something like to overshadow Suzanne's story, Suzanne's interview. She is looking for her, story to be revealed, but she is going even further. She is going to make like a documentary or something about her story, about her crime, to show her side of the story. And she's going to basically participate in a documentary, and she's going to make this documentary by using her lawyer, who has some connections with a film production. And basically this is everything we have at the end of season 1, episode 3. And with 2 episodes left, we can make another video, and I'm sure that the last 2 episodes, they are even more interesting, because I already watched everything, and this TV show just, it should be, it's definitely, it's gonna be going to another season. But at this point, just 5 episodes, it's just not enough for me, because the story is just so good, and to make it like short like this, it's kind of disappointing. But at the same time, like, you can basically complete the whole season in just 2 hours. And specifically, if you're skipping all the male prison parts, because this TV show just divided into male prison and female prison, and female prison shown way more in this TV show. It literally just 80% about female prison, and like maybe 40% about male prison, and 60% about female prison. And if you skip just all the male prison, you will get like 2 hours of female prison story. This is what I got by skipping all the male prison story. But the male prison story in this TV show is also interesting, but it's showing you like another side of all these women and their stories, because that male prison basically showing you how their husbands, how their ex, how their, boyfriends, how they try basically to, come up with another story, and how they try and basically to turn the tables, and so this is like two different stories told by women and men, and it's only up to you what part you're gonna watch, because for me, like, female part is way more interesting, but male prison in this TV show shown like slightly different, and with all the like chaos and like more aggressive approach, I would say, male prison seems to be like really different, and it's more similar to the prison that we see at the beginning of this TV show, when Suzanne basically was in the middle of this riot and she was trying to escape the convicts who basically targeted her, and she barely basically survived that riot. So that male prison basically looks like this prison, the initial prison of Suzanne, the one that she left after getting transferred to Tremembe. And Tremembe is a prison that is, it's a real life place. It's really in Brazil, São Paulo, and it really has like multiple complex, it's a huge complex divided into male and female facilities, and they basically serving their sentences, they basically located like next to each other, but they cannot see each other because they like separate, but at the same time they like so close, but they can only see each other like from TV. They can see each other from newspaper or on TV, and this is why basically showing two different stories from male perspective and female perspective, it's kind of working, because they cannot just directly confront each other, but they can use all the tricks like interviews or anything, just to tell their side of the story, So this is the end of the stream, because now we have all the necessary information and to make a short video about this series. But if it's not enough, anyway, I'm going to make another stream tomorrow with episode 4 and episode 5. So see you tomorrow. Goodbye. Thank you.